We are reading through the book of Matthew this month, taking a chapter a day. And today we're on Matthew 14. For each of these, I am posting a video clip just to give one or two thoughts, a couple highlights about that chapter. I'm not going into huge depth, that would take a long time, but want to give people something to think about. So today, Matthew 14, I want to highlight two pieces from it. The first is the feeding of the 5,000. We see this in verses 13 through 21. This is one of the very few pieces that appears in all four gospel accounts. Not even the Christmas story appears in all four, but this one does. He had been teaching. There was a large crowd that had gathered to hear him. Evening comes, and the disciples say, "It's a deserted place, it's late. Tell them to go away, to go to the villages so that they can get food for themselves." Jesus says to them, "They do not need to go away. You give them something to eat." Oh, I love that. Jesus could have snapped his fingers and turned the water into wine. He could have snapped his fingers and turned the stones into bread, made manna come down from heaven. He said to the disciples, "You give them something to eat." If we are disciples of Christ today, what is our reaction? We have people around us, people in our community, people in our neighborhood, maybe people in your church, people around us that are in need, whether they are in need of food or of clothing or whatever the need may be. It's too easy for us to point them to a shelter. Go to this place and they'll help you, or go to here. You call this person and they can take care of that. But as disciples of Christ, God says to us, you give them something to eat. You provide. We have the means. What are we waiting for? Later down in Matthew 14, I want to highlight a piece from verses 22 through 33. Often it's titled, Jesus Walks on the Water. The disciples had gotten into the boat and they were going across the Sea of Galilee. And Jesus was not in them at the time. But sometime during the night, Jesus is crossing over the sea, walking on water. They're shocked. They don't know what's going on. And he speaks to them saying, "Relax, be calm, do not be afraid, it is I." Now, Peter has a wonderful response. He said, "Lord, if it is you, command me to come to you on the water." Now, remember, for our rabbi-disciple relationship, the disciples are learning from their rabbi. They go with the rabbi almost everywhere that he goes. They stay with the rabbi for years because they want to be like their rabbi in every way. What they say, how they act, what they wear, I mean, truly everything. So Peter sees Jesus walking on water. He wants to be like his rabbi and says, "Lord, if it is you, command me to come to you on the water." Jesus said, "Come." He comes down out of the boat and walks to Jesus. But when he saw that the wind was big, he was afraid and began to sink, crying, "Lord, save me." Jesus stretched out his hand and caught him, saying, "You of little faith, why did you doubt?" They got into the boat and the winds and the waves ceased. Truly, our doubts hold us back from so much. Our doubts create so much, turns them into fears, and creates so much trouble for us. If we would just have that faith, we can walk on water, move mountains, do incredible things that seem impossible to us. But they only seem that way because of our little faith. Interestingly, when most people read this piece, they often focus how Peter sank. He lost focus, his little faith. But he was the only one to get out of the boat. What happened to the rest of the disciples? They should have been getting out of the boat too. Peter did show faith, even though he did have doubts and had fear. What about us? Are we going to show faith? Or are we going to let our doubts and our fears hold us back from our Rabbi Jesus?